The Bishop of Maitland, Bishop Leo Clark, was there to bless and officially open the newly renovated hostel. The 34-bed facility was first built in 1975 on grounds originally used by the Catholic primary school. The $1.3 million upgrading project, with $800,000 funding from the federal government, included a new ensuite in every room, a fire alarm and general renovation of the home. Cooinda is one of 3 Catholic hostels in the Diocese of Maitland, all of which are undergoing renovations.
The rescue helicopter drama has extended its cast of players. The Newcastle branch of the Surf Lifesaving Association has now given its support to the service's board and its chairman, Scott Derwin. The vote of confidence was taken after Mr Derwin, who's also the president of the SLSA's Newcastle branch, spoke at an association meeting.
He asked us for support if we felt that we should give that support, and that is what we did.
But angry citizens, led by Alderman Don Geddes, who are opposed to the actions of the service's administration, assert there have been breaches of its obligations of holding a charity licence.
I'd say that funds are going into the account of a company that's not the holder of the charity licence.
Alderman Geddes cites an SLSA helicopters document from May the 1st, which he says outlines the requirements for local funds to be transferred to Sydney. The document reads in part, all fundraising and other income will be paid to the credit of SLSA Helicopters Proprietary Limited.
And clearly that is a breach, as far as I'm concerned, of the obligations of fundraising.
The group is meeting with the Charities Administration on Wednesday to call for an investigation into the helicopter services operations. The chopper's major sponsor, Westpac, is also becoming increasingly concerned about the furor. In a letter which has been obtained by NBN, Westpac's Community Relations Manager Tony Benner has written to the SLSA saying, with regard to locally raised funds, it may be necessary to appoint an independent firm of accountants auditors to publicly report the true situation to the local community. And the fact that the helicopter was paid for by local fundraising activities brings us to the view that there are strong moral grounds for hunter autonomy. Mr Benner wouldn't comment on the letter, but with Westpac's sponsorship deal coming up for renewal next month, he hopes to hold a meeting within the next few days to get some answers about the Hunters Rescue helicopter turmoil. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
It was once thought that pool was the root of all evil and the cause of many a misspent youth, but the game is now helping to bring people together from both sides of the street.
Beat Police came in one day to talk to the kids, and the kid jokingly challenged him to a competition, and I got the idea from that and just carried along.
The long arm of the law had play on the straight and narrow at the East Lakes Youth Centre, but it was obvious that the police were dealing with some hardened pool sharks. Senior Constable Steve Offen squared up to Jason, known as Scary to his friends. The youngsters chalked up their first win. As a tactical response, the police brought in their big guns.
Well, man, it's a bit rougher in the third frame. It's the dying moments of it, and I'm a little worried, to be honest.
Senior Constable Tony Tamplin turned the tables. The grand final went to a playoff and the trophies to the police. The youngsters have challenged them to a rematch.
Not eligible for the 2-day weekend, and we want to know why.
Okay, we'll put that to Sharon, I think. Moving fairly quickly because, of course, we don't have that much time.
What do they have to do with the government staffing policies nationally? And after over 20 years of teaching.
Hunter State school teachers gathered at 28 venues in the Valley to protest against the changes to school staffing procedures. Union officials based in Sydney addressed the Valley meetings via a Sky Channel link-up. Teachers had an opportunity to take part in the discussion. Hunter Valley teachers overwhelmingly supported the motion to fight proposed government changes. They want the transfer system based on accrued points retained. The existing system gives teachers in isolated areas priority to transfer to other schools after 2 years.
It will mean that teachers will not want to move from the more favoured areas. They won't even want to move for a short period of time because they'll be frightened that if they move they'll never get back.
The mass meetings in the Hunter endorsed subsequent industrial action if necessary. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
While Federal Treasurer John Kerrin used his speech to the Newcastle Chamber of Commerce to outline the pain of being without a job, the Hunters unemployed say they're burning the most. This region's unemployment statistics are hovering around 11%, so the local jobless are not surprised by Mr Kerrin's gloomy prediction of double-digit unemployment figures, nor by what they see as a lack of concern in the budget for the problem. The Treasurer may have said employment is a top economic priority, but the unemployed and social workers are sceptical. Mr Shevels, who's the head of the Samaritan Centre in Hamilton, says the number of unemployed seeking help from his organisation has doubled to 250 in the past 3 months.
Thousands of people gathered in Federal Park. Buses brought concerned health workers from other hospitals in the Hunter. They joined local residents and striking workers who walked shoulder to shoulder with staff from Wallsend Hospital.
I want to see every hospital kept open. I don't want to see cuts in the service. I mean, my children and children in years to come are going to rue the day that we haven't got the hospital.
It's been a long march for protesters who've been campaigning for almost a month to save Wallsend Hospital. With only a few days to go, they're not giving up now. They say they're going to close it by Saturday. Do you think that will happen?
Not if we can help it.
The crowd gathered in the grounds of Wallsend Hospital. Speakers from the Labor Party who have attended other rallies were notably absent. They had a more pressing date maintaining their numbers in Parliament. The Secretary of Trades Hall, Peter Barrick, called on protesters to strengthen the picket line outside the hospital. They want to stop the transfer of patients to other hospitals.
It's been serviced 24 hours a day, but quite obviously we're getting to the crunch point. We have information from inside the hospital that Friday is likely to be the day that they'll move patients.
While the rally was underway, there was an indication that the health system is under strain. A patient was transferred from the John Hunter Hospital to the Wallsend Urology Unit. Some nurses expressed concern that they still haven't been told where they will be working next week.
We really know, I suppose, that we've got a job, but it's the tension of not knowing where we're going, what we're going to be doing, and not having control of our lives.
The Mayor of Lake Macquarie, Ivan Welsh, believes one of the most realistic ways to keep Wallsend Hospital open would be to privatise it. Today he met with representatives of Moran Healthcare Services in Sydney and asked them to carry out a feasibility study on taking over Wallsend Hospital.
Well, the first thing it'll achieve, we'll still have a health service that we need in the area. The second thing will be employment for the people of this region, and we'll still have a facility available to the people of Wallsend.
I think it's premature, and we're in the middle of a struggle here to maintain it as part of the public system.
Union officials will meet tomorrow to discuss further action, including a possible demonstration outside Parliament House in Sydney. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
Robert Worth has lived on dairy farms all his life. For the past 9 years, he's owned and worked his own property in partnership with his brother. He suffered, along with most hunter farmers, through extremes of rain and then drought, and he's had his fair share of health problems. But he's managed to build a prize-winning herd, and if the recession's reached his Whittingham property, he's not complaining. It's that farming spirit that the Young Achievers Rural Development Award honours. How does the future look?
Yeah, looks good at the moment. We're going along fine.
But his wife Narelle believes it's Robert's commitment to the rural community that impressed the judges.
I think as well as being successful on the farm, his community involvement helped him a lot. He's involved with the rural youth and the volunteer bushfire brigade, as well as the Guernsey Cattle Society, and showing, bred cattle.
Part of the award is a $5,000 cheque, and Robert's planning to share his good fortune around.
When I got nominated, I said I'd give half to the Rural Youth Club in town, which I'm going to give that, and they're not allowed to touch the capital, they're only allowed to use the interest, and hopefully the interest will sponsor something every year, and the other half I hope to invest for myself.
Rurally, not many people are recognised. A lot of people are pretty down with the land at the moment, the way things are, and to have an award like this for people on the land is a real encouragement.
Kathy Sale is a clerk at Access Industries in Hamilton. Her office, like many others, devours paper with the contents of the out tray dispatched to the bin.
I basically realised that the majority of the waste around was paper waste, and why couldn't it be compressed into something useful like a building product?
Stockpiles of hard-to-dispose-of newspaper loomed into Kathy's reckoning, and she enlisted the help of workmate Gordon Mitchell to turn paper into lightweight house bricks. Pulped paper, along with cement, additives and colouring, goes into a mix which is then moulded and left to dry. The finished product is a third the weight of a normal clay house brick and can be made for about a quarter of the cost. Kathy and Gordon claim the brick is waterproof, fire resistant and stands up to stress tests. Gordon says that the 205,000 tonnes of newspaper collected in Sydney each year could be turned into more than 800 homes. The lightweight bricks are laid in the traditional way by using mortar, but their ease of handling could revolutionise building methods.
The main point that I look at is actually the cost of building a house. I think it will reduce the cost all round with labour and the building products itself.
It may look pretty, but fireweed is a farmer's nightmare.
It chokes out pastures, clovers and grasses and things like that. It's also poisonous, so although cattle don't normally eat it, if they do eat it, it can damage their livers. It can be fatal in extreme cases, but more often it'll just cause an ill thrift.
Once it takes hold, fireweed is very difficult to eliminate, even with spraying. But there's some hope. In the past week, a possible biological control has been found. It's this grub, a slater-like creature that's the larvae or immature stage of a beetle. It's been found in pastures from Maitland to Clarencetown and appears capable of killing fireweed.
These little grubs, for want of another term, are doing quite a good job eating off the leaves, eating flowers and getting stuck right into the fireweed. Now, whether that's going to be effective in the long term or whether it's just a one-off thing, we really don't know at the moment, but it's a ray of hope anyway.
Department agronomists hope to identify the grub and its potential within the next few weeks.
Hunter ambulance officers work under a separate award to their counterparts in Sydney. Now it's believed the Ambulance Board and Health Commission are looking for ways of bringing work practices into line. A discussion paper called the Structural Efficiencies Principles Report includes a potentially inflammatory proposal to alter the Hunter work roster, which requires an officer who isn't able to report for duty to be replaced by another off-duty officer. In Sydney, staff are simply reshuffled to cover the shortfall. Hunter Ambulance Union representative Jeff Marlborough says transferring on-duty officers from other stations could lead to serious shortages of staff, especially at smaller stations.
If it's tampered with or indeed defeated by the government, then it would mean that we have the situation as we have in Sydney where especially the smaller stations would have their capacity to respond reduced and indeed in the worst scenario closed.
Most at risk include one-man stations at Raymond Terrace, Nelson Bay and Coorambong. Although the proposal is still only at discussion stage, Jeff Marlborough believes the proposal will be seriously considered. He says Hunter ambulance officers would resort to industrial action rather than see the loss of an award agreement of almost 30 years standing.
Staffing in the ambulance service is particularly bad. We're below staff efficiency levels now, and the larger stations would find it a detriment to their capacity to be able to facilitate those services to the public.
Greg Mowbray is a man with a mission. The enemy, the old-fashioned beer gut. Long seen as a bit of a belly laugh by Australian society, it's gone beyond a joke in the Hunter.
The national average for overweight and obese men was 48%, but here in the Hunter it's actually 60%, which is a staggering figure.
The Battle of the Bulge is serious stuff. The Hunter Area Health Service is currently studying the problem and hopes to eventually convince people of the dangers associated with a belt-bursting belly.
It is actually right up there with the other risk factors for heart disease, such as smoking, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. So we are specifically looking at reducing abdominal obesity. That's the aim of this study.
And if that isn't enough to spur you into action, consider some of the more subtle disadvantages. Yes, fellas, I'm afraid to say the time has come. If we don't shape up, we could find ourselves shipped out. What do you think about beer guts?
I hate them, and I hate people who drink alcohol. They don't look very nice. Just unappealing.
Beer bellies, I think they're really revolting.
Bruce McKenzie, NBN News.
Tonight's performance even extends the dimensions of the vast University Great Hall. Musical director Roland Peelman has amassed the largest orchestra ever here, including 2 grand pianos and the University and Waratah Girls choirs. The reason for all the excitement, the dramatic Carmina Burana, written by Karl Orff in the 30s, but based on medieval songs. The result? Simply spellbinding, and this is only a rehearsal. The only opportunity for you to hear this musical feast is tonight at 8 o'clock. The concert also features soloists Jennifer Barnes, Neil Kirby and David Russell. On the same program, Dance Macabre by Sanson and a world premiere performance of Australian Donald Hollier's saxophone concerto. But the whole second half, the exciting Camino Burana.
Local brigades responded to a 000 call from a house alight in 3rd Street, Boolaroo just before 6 o'clock last night. A male occupant of the weatherboard cottage had been asleep inside when the fire started. It's thought a cigarette left smoking on a lounge chair sparked the blaze. The house and its contents were destroyed, and a car in an adjoining garage was also badly scorched. Quick action by firefighters halted the blaze before it could take hold of a neighbouring property. At Foresters Beach on the Central Coast, brigades battled an overnight blaze which gutted a 2-storey brick and tile home. It was unoccupied at the time and little could be done to save its contents. Firefighters were called from the scene to attend a large out-of-control bushfire at Mangrove Mountain. Sydney and Central Coast brigades have been battling that blaze throughout the day. Elsewhere in the Hunter, strong winds and very dry conditions are fuelling fires burning on the western side of Lake Macquarie and across the coalfields. Fire bans will be imposed from tonight, with fire control centres urging landowners not to burn off. A trail of damage began from a car park behind the Palais Royal nightclub. At about 1:30, patrons saw an early model Ford Cortina being driven wildly, with a man clinging to its driver's side door. The car squealed right into Hunter Street, crossed a median strip onto the wrong side of the road and jumped the footpath. A number of street signs were flattened before the car sideswiped a wall. The man clinging to its door was thrown to the ground as the car careered through parking metres and snapped off a tree at its stump. Police are investigating one theory that the car was being stolen.
Well, that is one of the angles we are looking at. We're trying to establish the connection between an alleged driver of the vehicle, the deceased, and the ownership of the vehicle to the deceased.
The car continued erratically in a westerly direction for a full block before apparently losing control at the Hannell Street lights, where it again crossed to the wrong side of the road, this time crashing into the wall of the Bellevue Hotel. Its driver, believed to be a male, then fled. Police are calling for witnesses to come forward.
There was quite a few people around. We believe a lot of people saw the incident, and we are asking them to come forward to give us assistance with this inquiry.
The dead man, aged 31, is believed to be from Wollongong, but has been working in Newcastle. His parents are due to arrive in the city this evening to identify the body. Andrew Lobb reporting for NBN News. The music and atmosphere meander around Morpeth like the slow-moving Hunter River. Folkfest is for people who like their entertainment live and homemade, from a puppet show in the main street to song and dance lessons in the old School of Arts building. Poetry, drama and craft workshops have been combined for the first festival of its type to be held in the Hunter. There's also an emphasis on cultural and historic heritage. Flower power lives on with a dose of the beatnik blues from a soulful Margaret Road night. Folkfest continues throughout the weekend.